A lot has happened since 28 Weeks Later in 2007. All of Call of Duty Zombies, all of Left 4 Dead, Zombieland, all the Walking Dead series, and much, much more. The zombie medium has changed, shifted, and delivered memorable moments all so many times since then. So there was a lot to live up to for what was basically a direct sequel to Danny Boyle and Alex Garland's 2002 movie 28 Days Later, hinted at for years and then hyped up with trailers with insane imagery and the Boots poem music and theories. How would the rage virus adapt long term from what we had known? How would the people? It was all something else. So did it pay off having the OG writer and directors back?
Oh no. 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 No, 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 no.
I mean, no one's gonna eat your eyes.
What? To say I am disappointed is an understatement. Sure, my expectations were high, but everything I previously mentioned explains why that is. Years of build-up, the cliffhanger ending of weeks, the dying infected of days, how things could change. The imagery of the trailers and the tone of how the poems and how the shots were made it feel like a return to the gritty, dark, and real feeling of dread and horror the rage virus imposed with Days Later. But what we got was a largely pretentious, hollow imagery slapped in, unearned emotional beats, incoherent mess that barely connects the evolved infected on the main island of the British Isles to the survivors of the small island colony to a random ass bone sanctuary to an ending that came so out of left field in the worst way possible that you would get worse whiplash than a dude that just got his head ripped off by an alpha infected. With that rant, you can tell it's obvious I didn't like the film, but why? We got a big video coming your way today as we discuss why 28 years later is bad. Now, the first part of this video is going to be scripted with some collected thoughts in a spoiler-free territory, and then I will give you a warning when we get into spoiler territory. It'll be a live discussion as we talk about the entire movie. Some of you may come in here commenting saying that the message probably went over my head, that you enjoyed the movie. You can enjoy the movie, that is perfectly fine. And you could say that it's setting up for something much bigger, that this is just part of one larger experience. That, like the infected, things change and I just have to get used to it. No, I've spent a large portion of my time on this green earth in the last decade digging into deeper meanings behind zombie media, finding things that are both there and not there. One of my favorite viewing experiences were both 28 Days and 28 Weeks Later for what they delivered. If Years was going to deliver something different than both, that is perfectly fine, especially since they are confident enough to have a whole trilogy lined up. But what I saw and sat through in the movie theater premiere night just went from these mental chain of events. From, oh damn, this feels like a return to form. Oh, okay, we are setting up the world, so there's gonna be a lull, which is perfectly fine. Oh, that's how they're using the poem from the trailers? Oh cool, we're getting explanations on the infected. Oh wow, the return to the island sure is intense. Oh, the human drama is taking a different direction. Oh damn, the infected are kind of busted now. Oh, Sweden. Oh, we're going that direction with the franchise, huh? Oh, so that's what the skulls are from the trailer are all about? Oh, that was the rising action and climax? Really? Well, that's the highest point we get from the movie? Wait, the kid is doing what? Wait, what the actual hell was that ending? Genuinely, it feels like 28 Years Later was conceptualized as a miniseries or a direct-to-streaming series that should have lasted or would have lasted 8 to 10 episodes. And the ideas and execution of 28 Years Later Part 1 were that of episodes 1 and 2, with how the first hour spent establishing the lore of the colony, the main island, the infected, and how they change, and more, in the second hour just being about the bones, the kid, his mom, and and what comes after for the end of the movie. Apparently, setting up the sequel, The Bone Temple, it was more so just feeling episodic and stretched out. It felt like watching a television show that both had a lower budget and bigger budget, if that makes any sense. My honest opinion of what I mean by that, well, imagine The Walking Dead Season 2. You know, that boring season on the farm that kept on dragging on and only really had a few memorable moments. Think that, but with fast walkers for sometimes, and the art direction was obsessed with doing something new by using multiple iPhones. There was a lot of buildup with really no payoff that you would expect from a film franchise that was cut and dry, with making a full motion picture experience before to now, we will get to it when we either feel like it or if at all. Depends on the message we feel like delivering with the images we came up with in our heads and on the script. The story should center around the trailer bait imagery that we made, but not actually at all. If that all sounds confusing or disjointed in how I'm telling you, then I think it gets my point across about how I feel about the film. Disjointed storytelling, hollow image interpretation, film school level direction, a lot of marketing around this film was about how they're returning to their roots by using an army of iPhone 16 Pros, because that is equal to using the low budget camera equipment like they did in 28 Days Later, but in modern times. And all it effectively did was make the kill shots of the infected feel weird, and not in a way that aids the film, more like watching a kill from Uwe Boll's House of the Dead, that really cheesy movie from back in the day. Worst of all, this sense of dread, immediacy, and carnage with the zombies, infected, were just not used to their best abilities like previous films. It feels like the Rage Infected at their core were forgotten. How they work, how people combat them, how the rapid infection rate, the camera work, and more just did not feel like a 28 film, with the infected at the center and how they act. All of it without explanation except an offhand comment about how the virus is probably like steroids and how one splatter of blood got on a woman's face and a kid goes, "Oop, don't get that near your eye," despite a gang at the end of the movie sawing an infected's head off without abandon. And hell, a Swedish dude even calls the infected zombies directly, despite Alex Garland being inspired by zombie movies, saying back in 2002 that he didn't see 28 Days Later as a zombie movie. And now, here we are, starting as an iconic, trend-setting part of the zombie genre with 28 Days Later that didn't even want to be considered a zombie movie, to now a drag of a film set in its ways to deliver a message about the many different ways of reacting to both death and grief, life and death, light and dark, and the isolationism of Brexit to an ever-changing outside world. It overall felt pretentious, preachy, and largely forgetting most of what made 28 Days Later such a classic: the people and the infected. If I had to rate this movie, I would give it a 4 out of 10 the day after I saw it. I was disappointed and genuinely a bit enraged on what I watched. It can't even stand on its own as a movie like the last two did. It is not a complete experience, and it is way too experimental for its own good. People will go into it expecting a bloody post-apocalypse, but all of what we really got is a boy hating his dad, coming to terms with his mom, Voldemort obsessing over the words Memento Mori, PewDiePie talking about how weird it is that a 12-year-old boy in a 28-year-old apocalyptic zone doesn't know how the outside world works, like phones and stuff, infected Jason Momoa having massive dongs swinging around as the alpha infected. That was a cool concept, but poorly executed to just pull some heads off people's bodies in cool action shots that were so nice that they did it more than twice. Some of the biggest sins I can give for it as we now enter spoiler country. Yes, here come the spoilers. I'm gonna give you a few seconds to back out of here if you do not want to be spoiled, okay? Don't bitch at me. Here comes the spoilers. So, what the fuck? An infected pregnant woman giving birth to a clean baby? Yeah, you heard that right. An infected rage woman gives birth to a baby, to a cancer-ridden mom, and they both have a moment. And why is the baby not infected? Because of the magic of the placenta. Seriously? Seriously? That is where we're going with this franchise? And you know, the mountain of skulls that was all over the advertising and trailers? Well, that was just Voldemort just piling up all the dead that he could find, because there are many kinds of death. He obsesses over the Latin phrase memento mori, so he has spent the last 15 years piling up bones for that reason alone. And then at the end of the movie, we get some Clockwork Orange Russian mafia jumpsuit cult doing acrobatics to kill infected as your cliffhanger ending. We went from the virus has spread to we Paris, and 28 weeks later, we had all this hype. And then we have the cult of Jimmy running around like a gang doing flashy kills on infected. What could they possibly be doing in a serious movie like this, especially in the last 10 minutes? What was this tonal shift that just shut down the first of a trilogy? It felt like they wanted to take it into a Zombieland episode plot out of nowhere, but they ran out of time. It is a mess. Just a bunch of ideas thrown in a bloody blender to make people confused, but go, oh, it's confusing, but with rich imagery, so it's peak. It's convoluted and stupid, and it has forgotten how the series has been and really what the origins were really about, but now it's all about the imagery and messaging and all that. We're just gonna go off the cuff, discuss the spoilers and the story of the movie. I'm gonna go off script with my editor Chago, aka Quick Flicks, as we live chat our thoughts on the movie as a whole. One strong point of the 28 series was the intros. The first one was the experimental shit with 28 Days showing the monkeys before everything broke out. And everyone remembers that. And 28 Weeks Later, probably the best intro to a horror movie I will probably ever see.
Yeah, no, I agree completely.
It was real gritty. I mean, Don ditching his wife, all the zombies coming over, infected, coming over the horizon. It was just really good, really suspenseful.
Yeah, the music was fantastic. The cinematography, the controversial choice that Don made.
Yeah.
Like, there's just so much in this intro that's going on. The feeling of how everything collapsed so quickly. Like, they feel safe one second, the next second everybody's dead.
Yeah,
it's just...
and the way it felt like Years was trying to emulate Weeks by doing the same thing of we have a house, there's kids there, everything's safe, and then suddenly just we have them watching Teletubbies in a room, then the infected break in, and Jimmy's the sole survivor there.
Yeah. And I feel like they think that because, they let the infected kill the kids, like, they thought that would be impactful or do something. It just felt meaningless.
It really did.
Like,
it was just a blood splatter on the screen of Teletubbies. I was like, okay, you're going for the Lost Innocence thing, but really, that's... The kid runs out, the infected are killing everybody, and he goes to the church to see his pastor of a father. And what didn't make sense to me is when we were talking about the trailers, I was like, okay, maybe there's this whole cult of the rage and he's intentionally infecting himself. But it's literally just, oh, this is God's plan, and I'm gonna intentionally get myself infected. Like they were trying to emulate 28 Days Later and the whole church thing where Jim had walked in. I was like, okay, maybe we're getting backstory of that. No, it just rushed.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping for. Whenever we saw the trailer, I was hoping that like that scene was like a flashback to that moment in 28 Days. I was really hoping that, but yeah, no, it just felt everything in this felt so rushed. If they could have stretched this intro like another 3 minutes and allowed things to breathe and happen, I feel like it could have been great.
It could have been. It also didn't make sense to me. He lets himself get infected, but we have to remember these are the rage infected, and this is when stuff was just hitting the fan. These infected want to kill, not infect. If you were to get bombarded by like 20 of these things, you would not be intact.
Yeah, no. Absolutely.
They all just kind of swarm him like there was a shot from the show Kingdom where this one person was getting infected. It felt like it was trying to do that, and then he's like, yes, my children, and then his eyes turn red. They didn't even use Solera lenses to make it look like this person's infected. You could tell his eyes were turned red in post.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, you could definitely tell. It looks so different than the past movies.
But you were saying before we got into this, it was The first 30 minutes were good. The intro was good.
Yeah. Okay, the intro wasn't horrible. I think in the grand scheme of like the 28 series, it's bad. But as an intro, you know, in a Soul movie, like by itself, it's fine. Like it's just there.
Yeah.
It could have been so much better. It was just a letdown, and I think that's really the biggest thing. Is it was just disappointing.
What we've had 18 years of build up from the week's intro, the day's intro, and it's supposed to summarize what you're going to be expecting in some sort of way, something memorable. There wasn't really anything memorable. It was the best way I could put it is it sets up how Alex Garland and Danny Boyle. It feels like they're obsessed with making stuff that looks good in trailers and looks good as imagery more so than making something memorable.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I like I said, I really think if they could have added a little bit more to this, stretched it out a little bit, it would have been so much better.
Yeah.
And like you said, the whole church thing is just the dude is just already in doomsday mode.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's kind of silly. Yeah, the intro for me by itself, it gets like a 3 out of 10.
Yeah, yeah, I'm in the same boat, especially because you're building this off of days and weeks, and you have the expectations. There's going to be a lot of people in comics saying, "Oh, don't go in with the expectations," blah blah blah. It's like, yeah, but you're going off one of the most iconic. It's a zombie movie. I don't care. One of the most iconic zombie movie franchises of all time. And then we do the time jump. It's the first movie of a trilogy. It's established that this is going to be in a trilogy. We already have the second movie coming out next year. They're pulling some James Cameron Avatar stuff.
Although I don't know if you saw, they said that they might not do the third movie if the second doesn't perform well.
Oh Lord. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So, God, if they pull another 28 weeks later ending where we're just sitting on a cliffhanger. Which, don't get me started on cliffhangers with this. We'll get to that later. So I say in my spoiler-free section, this feels like a television series that was repurposed into a movie just like Zombieland was.
Yeah.
And I'm completely fine with them establishing lore and taking their time to do so, especially with them saying that the trilogy is going to be going forward. So we're set with... we're going to get more. That's completely fine. We have the Island of Survivors. You have the path, the causeway that connects you to the mainland. How if you go out into the island, if you don't come back, we're not sending a search party. Yeah, that's completely valid because it is not worth sending people to die, especially when you don't have doctors.
yeah, exactly. But can I say, I love the idea of like that path being submerged with water. At certain points in the day, you have to make sure that you're there at the right time to cross back.
Yeah.
I actually like that idea a lot. I thought it was great.
It was a really good concept, and I really liked how they went with it, especially because they explain there's a whole text scene talking about we just released the video talking about how 28 weeks later, is it canon or not? Paris got nuked. We don't know if it's actually nuked or not. It was offhand. Basically, Europe was able to push it back to the islands. That's what we know for sure. And Alex Garland, Danny Boyle both said the inspiration for this was Brexit. Now, I'm not too into politics. I'm not going to go into politics. This is not a political channel. I've said if I ever get into politics as a YouTuber, kill me. I don't want to be that.
Yeah.
The whole point of the zombie medium is to both have zombie carnage and to have a message. That's how it's been since George A. Romero. Always has been. I'm completely fine with that. But it was up its own ass with this.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. The whole Boots poem stuff, man, and like the footage of like kids and soldiers like marching and everything.
Yes.
Like I feel like they thought it was so symbolic of, you know, like the father and son going out for the first time, and I just didn't see it. I really didn't see the symbolism with that. It just felt so forced.
Yeah, there was a whole thing of stock footage from like the medieval times of using archers, because they were teaching kids how to use bows and arrows because guns aren't a thing this far in. And they were showing stuff from like World War II and showing footage from that. And I was like, it felt like an art house film from a college student. Just like, hey, here's this random imagery that was free to use. We're going to, it's symbolic because the world has been remade and we're restructuring and going from medieval times and going through all this. I'm like, oh my God, dude, seriously?
Yeah. And how we were talking earlier about, you know, Danny Boyle and Alex Garland, they only put that Boots poem in the actual movie because it got such good reception in the trailer. It makes me wonder what that part of the movie looked like before they did that. Like, I wonder if any of that footage was actually there.
It feels like they bumped up the runtime just for that, because you told me before we got on here, because a lot of people, you and me included, the trailers with that Boots poem, it was so impactful. It felt like genuine 28 Days, where it was like this gritty, real version of just how the zombie apocalypse is going through this and how people are going through marching forward. It really attached to people, but you said they added it into the movie after the trailers had been released, which is insane to think. When the father and son, they're walking through the causeway, and this is the Boots moment. It's like, what do you mean you're marching? You're just literally, this is something that's just mandatory.
Yeah.
Because honestly, it felt like it was added just to pad time and just to be like, hey, remember this.
Yeah, exactly. It felt so forced. I don't care for that part at all. It's just, it's there.
It was an afterthought, and it sucks that the biggest thing about the hype of the movie, besides the Rage Infected finally coming back, was an afterthought that was added. And it just did not fit.
Yeah, no, not at all.
And that's a lot of what this movie is. It's just pretentious symbolism of images and audio. Yeah, you could use that to, summarize or, display what you're trying to go for. 28 Days Later did that immensely well with him waking up and going into the church and, the wall saying the end is extremely fucking nigh, and him just going into an empty London. They did that with a limited budget, but here it's like, oh, just throw it in. That'll be cool.
Yeah, exactly. Couldn't have said it better.
The whole story is centering around this young boy who never knew the previous world.
Yeah, which, by the way, I think he was great.
Oh, he was the best part of the movie. He was a phenomenal actor for being a 12-year-old boy.
Yeah, I thought he was fantastic. Stole the show.
So the whole point was his mom is sick with something we don't know until later in the movie, and we have shots of her through the window. I thought they were paralleling the whole 28 weeks later thing. It's like, oh, maybe she's half infected and they're keeping this from the people. Later on, we figure out she has cancer and whatnot, and it feels like the mom was underutilized. It just felt flat.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't know how far we want to dive into the movie from where she starts to where she ends up. But yeah, I feel like I didn't care much for the actual character. Like, I felt bad for her, and
there was just constant, I'm having flashbacks of the previous world and I'm calling my son my father. And she was very delusional the entire movie. Delirious. Like, very confused the entire time. And we didn't know what was wrong with her. Like you said, I actually kind of thought the same thing. Maybe, is she infected with it? Is she not? That's kind of where my mind was going the entire time. She does drive the second half of this movie. Yeah. It feels like the father was the first act, where the father is supposed to be this hero that ends up he's just a liar, and then the mom drives the second act of what's out there in the world. It's to push him into the world to figure out what's actually going on, the truth of the world. More so than anything, because the whole thing about zombie shows, movies, games is also the human element, because zombies aren't really anything except a driving force of bloody cool carnage. Yeah, you could have the human drama. That's always an important factor. The biggest thing about going into this is it's 28 years, and by the end of 28 days, we're seeing they're dying of malnourishment, dehydration, exhaustion, because this is like a variant of rabies that has been incubating. Yeah. And with rabies, you can't drink, you basically can't eat, you're just going to die eventually. The infected evolved, and it feels like it just glossed over.
And who was it who mentioned how they evolved? Was it the soldier? I can't remember.
No, so later on we get a soldier that crash lands on it. We get to it in a bit, but basically the doctor says the rage virus is like steroids. And for some people, you know how steroids affect some people where they bloat, they get logy. So we get some of the infected that are big gray blobs just dragging themselves on the ground, eating worms and crap. And I'm like, this feels like Walking Dead.
Yeah, exactly. It did feel like The Walking Dead. It looked like the well zombie.
The well zombie in season 2. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and like it was eating earthworms, and then later on in the movie, it confuses a shoelace for an earthworm.
Yeah, then it eventually was going to eat the boy, but the mom
Yeah.
saved him. I was like, okay, you know what? Variants, okay, sure.
Yeah.
I bring up at the beginning of the video, it's been since 2007. There's been a lot of zombie media. Left 4 Dead, Resident Evil has had more stuff. Zombieland has had their entire franchise. So many different things has happened that I
Yeah.
feel like they were like, okay, the infected have to evolve because that's just what zombie media does these days, even though we didn't say we were zombie media in the beginning.
Yeah. Although they did say for the very first time,
Yeah.
the word zombie.
Yeah, there's a Swedish army guy that says zombie, and I'm like, oh my god, they actually said it.
So zombies do exist in this universe, then?
Yeah.
Right? That's what they're trying to say?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
Obviously, this whole island is quarantined. But yeah, no, I agree. Like, I'm fine that they have, some evolved infected, and like they're showing that they progress, or there's different variants. I think it's cool, but it's nothing special. Nothing unique. And then also, like you said, they briefly touch on how they're actually evolving, like with the whole steroid thing and everything.
Yeah.
I would love for them to dive so much more deeper into that. And I don't know. I just feel like it was so lazily written and so lazily explained.
Yeah, because they went into a lot of just the infected just spread and go and die. That it really should have had a little bit more expansion, or at least somebody talking about it, because at the beginning they're talking about how to kill the infected, aim for the heart, for the head, or for vital portions.
Yeah.
But they don't go into don't get infected, the blood dripping everywhere, all it takes is what, because in both movies previously, we had the dad in the first one get one drop in his eye, boom, he's screwed.
Yeah.
We have the dad kiss his infected wife, boom, he's screwed. This movie didn't have any of that. We had one scene where he kills an infected and some blood gets on his mom, and he's like, oh, don't get that anywhere near your eyes, and then that's it.
Yeah. You know what? That's a great point. I didn't even think about that. Did anybody in this movie become infected?
No,
No one. Yeah.
there was no
We never-
sense of
yeah.
urgency for the rage virus, which in both movies there was always like when that one woman, when her and the guy showed up to save Jim, he gets bit and scratched, and she does not hesitate. She chops him to bits because they're like, yeah,
Yeah.
you know the rules. If you get anything in it, you're dead.
Yeah.
Here, it's like nobody plays by those rules. It's just like we get one off mention by a 12-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but that's a great point. I can't believe, we didn't really see much of any of that, and seeing nobody get infected also. Like, we didn't even have I mean, I guess maybe the priest at the beginning of the movie. That was it.
Yeah. We get
Yeah, we saw him turn, but that's it.
when the infected first show up to hunt the son and father, we see them coming over the horizon and we see their red eyes and stuff. That's the only time it felt like the rage infected were there.
Yeah, and I will say, like, I thought that was cool. I thought it was so cool when they came over the hill and
Yeah,
we
that
got those,
whole
like,
the chase
those-
scene.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that was awesome.
That's the only time it felt like the 28 series. The rest of the movie did not feel like it.
Completely agree, and that's why I liked it so much. I thought it was great. I was like, when that whole scene happened, I was like, oh my god, I am so in for this movie. Like, this
Yeah,
is
same.
great.
It
I
had
thought
me
it was
hyped.
so awesome. It did. Absolutely, it was so cool, man. And they kept turning around, and like the dad was, killing him, picking him off with a bow and arrow, and the son couldn't quite do it. It's his first time out. He's nervous.
Yeah, because he was able to kill the slow ones, which makes sense. And killing the fast ones, it's whole different than playing target practice. But when
Yeah.
they
Yeah,
got to the house, the cabin, that's where I
Yeah.
felt like things started to deteriorate.
When
Because
we saw the upside down body, like the hanging body.
yeah, so the hanging body, because that was a whole nother element to the trailers. Here's a hanging body with Jimmy written on it, and it's
Yeah.
like, okay, this is the cult of Jimmy. I felt like they were intentionally being misleading because we have Jim from the first movie.
Yeah.
And it's
I
like,
can see
okay, maybe his mind has gone so far after all these years. No, Jim's apparently in the second movie that they pulled some freaking Bryan Cranston and Godzilla crap where they advertised, oh look, we have him. No, the whole thing of him hanging upside down, it made you think, okay, there is an extra threat out there besides the infected, and
And little do you know,
nothing happens
What
with
you're-
that. Nothing.
literally nothing.
It's literally because the concept is cool. You hang somebody upside down, you bag their head. That because the whole point of rage infected is they vomit blood when they first infect and they do it randomly. So I'm like, okay, they're doing that in case somebody finds this and they don't get infected accidentally. It's a warning, sure, but nothing happens with that. Not until the end.
Yeah,
the
which
last
we'll get
what,
into.
5 minutes, like.
Yeah.
It's like, what was the point of that? You're making this like a TV show where this is something that's supposed to happen in episode 7 or 8, where it finally
Exactly.
expands on that.
Yeah, and it's super frustrating. Like, I thought this whole Jimmy thing too was gonna be like, the people that we saw in the trailer with the masks. crazy people.
Oh,
it
that's-
just goes nowhere.
When you go with the mask thing too, I was talking to my girlfriend, and we were like, when I saw the mask, it was literally just target practice stuff, nothing else. And then we had one person wearing the mask while they were celebrating on the island. I was like, what was the point of that?
I know. I think that's the trailer clip. What you see in the trailer is like all you see of the mask in the whole movie.
Yeah, that's it. It's literally clickbait. People
it
get
is.
mad at clickbait on YouTube. We're getting that in cinema.
There was so many cool things set up that did not execute.
No, that's what I get into. There is a mountain of setup where there is just nothing there. You're like, okay, something's gonna. Wait, that's it.
Yeah.
And,
Exactly.
There was a lot of, okay, we're going over the advertising of the movie with the scenes, the shots, and everything. One of the biggest things that Alex Garland, Danny Boyle kept bringing up is we had original equipment in 2002. We're using handheld cameras that looked not film quality, studio quality. Now they're like, okay, it's the modern day. We're going to use iPhone 16 Pros. And I'm like, at first I was like, okay, makes sense. A lot of people have these kind of devices in their hands. Not in Britain in this timeline, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But sure. And then they had show the shot of the rig they set up where it was like 20 different iPhones on this metal thing. I thought, okay, that's going to give them room to make something different, new, unique. And it was literally just for the kill shots of the infected, and it was the most awkward, janky thing I've seen in movies in a while.
Yeah, no, like you said, when I saw the rig, I was like, cool, like this is gonna be something unique, something awesome. And then you just see what they do with it. It's like somebody kills an infected, and you see the infected die, but then you see it in like 7 more angles, like right after, super quick, low frame rate. It's just cheesy.
The best way I can put it is, have you seen Uwe Boll's House of the Dead, that live action adaptation of the arcade game?
Yeah.
It felt like they were trying to do that, because
Yes.
the way the camera would like zoom around the zombie every time it happened, and in the first half, every time there was a kill through an arrow through the head, the heart, it would do this thing where it would go all the way around. It's like, hey, we have 16 cameras, let's but the frame rate would go down, and it's like, I can excuse lower frame rate. You're trying to go for a quality thing of like how the cameras were when they were like shaking, kind of like Cloverfield shit from 2007. Okay.
Yeah.
But it does not work. It's like I'm not watching TikTok.
Yeah, no, it was very silly. I just want to see like what it was like in the editing room, right? Like they do that. Was everybody just like, oh my god, that is awesome? Like everybody's gonna freak out over this.
It's like, just because it's different doesn't make it cool or interesting.
And you know what? I'm so glad that they only used it like at the beginning.
Yeah,
You don't really see it after that.
They started forgetting that they used that tool. It feels like the tool broke halfway through. They're like, I don't feel like putting that back together.
Yeah, exactly. You see it like 10 times and then never again. And all 10 times it happens in like a 5-minute span.
Every time it happened, it makes you look, because did you go to the movies with anybody, or was it just you?
Yeah, it was me and my wife.
Okay. Yeah, when it happened, did you look at your wife and go, what the fuck just happened? What was that?
You know, I'll be honest, she does not like the 28 movies, and she didn't want to go see this one, but she went because I wanted her to. And when it happened, when that happened, I didn't even want to look at her. I felt embarrassed to take her to that. Like, I didn't want to look at her.
Honestly, I felt the same with my girlfriend and her son. Every time that happened, I looked over going, what the fuck was that? Because when they did kills for the infected in 28 Days Later, they would show it, and it would be like this, like a camera angle from a different angle of them like jerking dead. It was jarring, but it was like, it showed how erratic they were, and like they're dead, and it's just the erraticness of everything. It was supposed to keep you on edge. That did not keep you on edge. It felt, my girlfriend Erin brought up how, like, if the PS1, PS2 era, if you were to kill somebody in like an RPG, there would be a cutscene that would separate in a different kind of graphics that would it felt like that. It felt like it put you in a different kind of movie.
Exactly. It's kind of like the Sniper Elite games, right? If you get like a
exactly.
Yes,
that's a good way to put it, and that's funny because Sniper Elite made Zombie Army.
They did, which was an okay game.
Yeah, just the way they tried to evolve how they did the zombie kill shots, how they made the infected learn how to eat everything they can. There was this one thing, too, where I thought with the trailers that we had these army soldier guys coming in. I was like, okay, maybe they're doing reconnaissance to see how things in Britain are going, or maybe they're trying to get a sample of the rage virus because every zombie franchise has to have a bioweapon these days.
Yeah.
I was thinking,
Yeah.
oh, please don't go down that route, but I could see it because
Yeah.
the rage virus is that broken. We had these shots, it looked like Animal Planet, where it was just these natural shots, night vision with red, and it was just the zombies or infected just roaming around with red eyes, eating animals, showing corpses everywhere. It made me feel uneasy. It was really cool because I was like, okay, maybe this is camera footage. It was surveillance footage that they were getting of the infected. But that goes nowhere too. It was just, I guess, the perspective of the infected at night.
I don't know exactly the perspective of it, but it was a cool shot. And they almost felt like cavemen or something, like crazy cavemen.
Yeah.
That's how the zombies kind of looked and felt in those scenes. Weren't they all like naked too? Like,
Yeah.
They're all naked and yeah, they have super long hair.
Yeah, so it makes sense why everybody's naked because 28 years in, they're not going to be maintaining their clothes well. It's definitely ripped off, deteriorted. Honestly, it did kind of put me out because sometimes you'd see some dong flopping around and shit. I
Oh
was
yeah,
like,
yeah, especially on the alpha,
oh god, the alpha
which we'll get
was...
to later. Yeah.
Yeah, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. They had a scene where they were talking about Thunder Gun hanging dong. That's all I could think of.
Yeah, no, that scene though, I thought it was a cool scene, and it's like they start killing a deer, right?
They rip the alpha rips the deer's head off and just displays it on the tree, which
So it's like a warning to people.
I don't understand because that's not brought up again. We'd go into it in a second, but he has this thing, the alpha has a thing for ripping living things' heads off just to use it as a weapon and stuff. Awesome.
Yeah.
It shows that the alphas have some kind of intelligence where we're going to make sure we kill something by ripping the head off. It feels like they were trying too hard on, we have this evolution thing where he's leading the pack. One thing I liked about the house scene, when he was looking out, you could see the alpha is still on the hill staring at the
Yeah.
house, waiting for them to come out. It's like, my infected
Very
brothers and
creepy.
sisters, you're in there randomly looking around, but I'm waiting.
Yeah.
I know they're in there.
Yeah, it's creepy when you see him just standing there waiting in his
Yeah.
little pose.
But later in the movie, the same alpha, he just busts through every defense. Like, he shoots his arm through the ground, he pulls into a train, but for the house, he's like, I'm just gonna stare.
do you think that's the same alpha? Is there one alpha or are there two?
I think it was the first alpha because we'll go ahead and get into that. When they leave the house, because there's a stampede of deers which causes the house to destroy itself from the roof downwards, which structurally that's not how houses work. It would break from the bottom up, but
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
They start
Yeah.
rushing home and they start going through the causeway because it's shallow enough for them to get there. We get this whole thing of imagery of the zombie alpha is chasing them. All the other infected just said, we're not here today. He's chasing them through the water, long hair, looking like Jesus crossing the water, walking on water.
Yeah.
And all I could think
Absolutely.
of that whole time is Professor Farnsworth going, "Sweet zombie Jesus." There was the crows above too. At first I thought, is this motherfucker commanding crows that are
Yeah.
infected?
I was gonna say, are those rage-infected birds?
I thought so too. I was like, maybe the animals work with them now, but no, that's not a thing. Aaron brought up a good point, or Renosaurus. She brought up, no, they were just running away from him to
But
show
why would
how.
they go directly?
I-
Like to where, you know?
I don't know. You could definitely tell they were CG, but I was
Yeah.
like, the imagery of this horde of crows just run. I was like, it was another instance of imagery over substance. Because I was like,
Yeah.
that went nowhere. We have zombie Jesus crossing the water. I do like that they showed how durable he is. It took a few bolts until they did an explosive bolt in his chest. That was cool.
Yeah, and you know, he reminds me a lot of, I'm pretty sure he has the same name, the Alpha Zombie in Army of the Dead.
Yeah.
Like, I think they're very similar.
Yeah, honestly, the way they were commanding everybody
Yeah.
or leading them, I do like that the infected, when they scream, it brings others that way.
Yeah, exactly. He kind of commands the infected, and he's durable. Like, we were just talking about the durability, you know, it takes a lot to put him down. And they look the same, you know? Like, they're both buff, tall, long hair.
Yeah.
I think they're very similar.
And there's the doctor later on that we brought it up earlier. It's basically rage virus is steroids. It affects people in different ways. Some people become bloated, fat, and can't move, while fucking Jason Momoa over here gets buff as hell to the point where he can pull somebody's head off with one hand.
And their spine.
Which-
Spine comes off with it.
Yeah, exactly. Which it didn't make sense when the deer got pulled out. It felt like I was listening to bubble wrap pop, but it was still, again, imagery.
But I will say, like, with this whole scene, I think this, for me, is where the movie peaks. And then it never gets there again, and it just completely falls off a cliff.
Oh yeah, where they get
I-
to the island again.
Yeah, Yeah, and it actually, there's not a lot of movies that actually, like, I get a little bit of anxiety for. Like, I just kind of have gotten over that with movies, but I actually had a little bit of anxiety with this part of the movie. Like, I don't know what it was, but that dude just chasing them back, because I could have sworn, I really thought Aaron Taylor was gonna, I thought he was gonna die.
He
I really
did. I liked how the character even said that. It's like, oh, this is it, son. I'm sorry. Like, he
Yeah.
thought, he was like, oh, yeah, we're screwed because this motherfucker, there's nothing we can do. I could try to punch him, but I'm going to get my head ripped off. I've seen it before. Like, he fully accepts it, and then boom. The second that arrow explodes him, that's where the movie starts to fall down.
Completely agreed.
They go inside and they start partying, and they're like, oh yeah, he took down so many infected, and the boy's like, oh, he's lying about that, he's lying about this. And then the wife, the mom that's sick in the attic, apparently he's cheating on her, and he goes down on another woman. I was like, okay, we went from the kiss of 28 weeks later to now you're eating somebody out. I was like, okay, this is different. We had that was different.
I know, I feel like he went from like this, I thought, like, you see him as like a good dad, like he's a good guy in the beginning, and then you quickly start learning like he's a liar. He's getting his son wasted at 12 years old.
Yeah.
And then he goes and cheats on his wife, and then we also find out that he wants his wife to die, like, because she's sick and she's such a burden. And I just feel like his character, it goes from, at least for me, like, I was like, oh, I like this guy, to, oh, this dude sucks. Like,
yeah. Honestly, the development for him was good. The only thing that sucks is second half of the movie, he's not there.
Yeah,
it's like we
he's
get this
just gone.
development and boom. It's like, okay, we
Yeah.
got to move on to the mom. When we're in the house, we see that the kid's like, oh, there's a fire over there. What is that? And he's like, oh, let's not talk about that. We don't talk about Bruno. And we finally go back, and the grandpa that's sitting in the house is like, oh, yeah, this is an old doctor that used to be with us, but he's crazy. And then he talks to the dad about it. He's like, why didn't you say there was a doctor? We could cure mom of what's going on. He was like, I'm going to stab dad because he's a liar and he's wanting mom to die. I was like, okay, I think that's where the boy's acting shines the best, was that scene.
you can see the emotion, you can feel the emotion that he has to not like his dad, and like seeing the true side of his dad.
Yeah.
And you can tell he really cares about his mom. I thought he did a great job.
Yeah, he did fantastic. And so that's where the first half legitimately ends, although I don't think that's even the first hour.
I think it's like the first 35 minutes.
And so,
yeah, which is crazy, because like I honestly thought going into this movie, like the whole idea, I thought it was just going to be them going out, and then I thought like the climax, like towards the end of the movie, was going to be them finally coming back, getting chased back, and the island was going to like fend itself off against like this huge horde. But that all kind of, like it all happens in the first 30 minutes.
I was thinking that too.
We go from them getting into a little, scuffle, and he starts resenting his dad, so the kid starts, trying to plan a way to get to the doctor.
Because later on, the dad explains that 15 years ago, there was this doctor. He started piling up hundreds of bodies in lines and lines of rows. And we saw that, and he waved back like it was nothing. And we're like, okay, we're never going to talk to this guy again. Somehow this guy survived 15 years with alphas running out there. It's like, yeah, it was disturbing, so we don't talk to him anymore. I was like, he's still a doctor. He still could help if something happens. I think that's the guy that played Voldemort. I think it's Ralph Fiennes. Was that the guy that played Voldemort or what?
I don't know.
I have no idea. I'm not a Harry Potter guy.
Which I will say, it's crazy you bring that up, because there's a movie, or part of this movie, that just reminds me of Harry Potter. But we'll get there.
Okay. And so basically the kid is like, I need to take mom. She's sick. I'm going to take her to the doctor. Nobody else is going to let me. So he burns a thing in the island and gets everyone to run away, and he takes his mom out of the gates, which I'm surprised he was able to get her out even though everyone's distracted. And he's walking her there, and half the time she's having flashbacks to her dad in the pre-outbreak, and she's not in the right mindset to even be walking, let alone be in the middle of all these infected. And then they stop. They have a bunch of... There was a lot of lulls in this part of the movie where I was like, okay, let's get on with it. I understand what you're going for, but they stop in this, I think it was like a destroyed church, and they go to sleep, and he sees images of his mom. There's like infected everywhere, and his mom halfway submerged in the water. I think that was from the previous house, but suddenly one of those fat zombies starts slowly walking up towards him. That's the part you were talking about, the shoelace he was eating, and he was about to eat him. And then it shows the mom had some semblance of self and killed him by bashing its brains in. And then I was like, okay, kind of cool. It reminded me kind of like when Jim was asleep and having the nightmares in the first one.
Definitely, I could see that. I thought it was a little weird how they showed the mom killing the fat dude, because it's like you see her, put a bag around its head, and then it just cuts straight to the next day.
Yeah,
And
it was
then
weird.
10 seconds later, it shows it again, but like the full scene.
It felt like they weren't confident enough because I felt like they were going to go in the direction of, oh, somebody put a bag over its head. It's either the cult, because that's what they did earlier with the one dude, put a bag over his head so he wouldn't go anywhere. Or I thought it was going to be the doctor as he was doing his rounds or some shit.
Right.
But-
And then when they showed that, I was like, oh, like she's a badass. Like she's gonna be a cool character. Like maybe she's used to
nothing.
killing him off. Yeah. I was like, maybe she's just like his dad. Like, and she's trained and gonna kill a lot of these infected along his side. And
She ends up
You
not
just never
being
get it
able to
again.
walk. Yeah. It never comes up again. It's like, I get
Yeah.
what they're going for. She's trying to defend her son one last time or something. We get the soldier scene. That's what happened next.
Yeah.
We get those guys in full riot gear, assault rifles, and they're being chased by infected. And
well, we find out their boat actually was
Yeah.
sinking, right?
yeah,
why
they
that's
hit
why
the
they went to land.
rocks. Yeah, they
Yeah.
crashed on the rocks because they were doing typical, because there's the whole quarantine zone around all the British Isles. They just make sure that nobody gets off or in. They hit rocks and they say a joke about scotch on the rocks. But then it shows that they're ill prepared to actually fight the infected. They get killed off one by one. One of their heads gets ripped off by the Alpha, which that was probably the coolest scene of the movie, was when he rips the soldier's head off and beats the other one to death with his head.
Yeah,
That
it
was
pretty
fucking cool.
Yeah, and one of the soldiers sees that and freaks out, and he just runs.
Yeah.
He does not care. He gets out of there.
So
That was pretty cool.
they all get killed or infected. We did get the one scene of one of the soldiers puking up blood. He did get infected, so we did have that momentarily.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that. Okay.
But then it just turns into, oh, we needed one of them to survive. And then the mom and son show up at the gas station. Dude, that gas station part was so inane to me. Felt like a Simpsons bit. When they showed up to the gas station, it was a Shell station, but the S fell off and it said hell.
Hell. Yeah.
I was like, oh, come on, guys, really?
Yeah.
It felt very corny.
It did. It
But-
did.
The mom and son are getting chased by infected into this gas station. They come in and they're like, what is that? What was the visual effect of the gas? What was
I
the
don't
blue?
know.
I thought it was blue smoke. I was like, okay, maybe the doctor's living here and he has some kind of chemical concoction to knock out the
Yeah.
infected. That was fermented gas that had been sitting there for 28 years that just kind of accumulate. I don't know if anybody knows this, but gas stations don't keep their gas supplies within the main building, and it doesn't ferment upwards.
I remember seeing part of it in the trailer too, like the actual effect of it. Yeah.
I was like, why is
Yes.
it blue?
Yeah.
It's like for
It had that hue of blue. It's just so weird.
for gases,
Yeah.
like if a gas is up, it's just wavy air. It's not colored, and that
Yeah, I
felt
thought
like
it looked kind of weird.
it felt like another thing they did in post, were like the red eyes for the priest, the boots
Mm-hmm.
on the thing. They're like, okay, the audience doesn't know knows there's gases here, so let's just add
Yeah.
this blue gas effect. I'm like, people
Right.
can know what gas is. They even say, what is that smell?
Yeah, and when they walk in, they immediately collapse, right? Or the kid does.
Yeah, it's just like,
They're,
oh,
they're struggling
God.
to breathe.
Yeah.
And even the infected are actually, affected
They start
by it
struggling.
as well.
Yeah, it's like that gets in their eyes and they're having a hard time looking around trying to find the prey. And
Yeah, so it affects them too.
well, the
And
thing
typical-
is, well, just on the gas a little bit. I don't know how many times over the years with zombie sins, why you wouldn't survive. So I always bring up how gasoline, if it's in an open environment, it's not going to last more than a year. If it's contained, it will dilute into water in less than 5 years. But this
Okay.
is almost 30 years later, and you're saying it's flammable gas in the air that's just accumulated in the building. It was all
Yeah.
just a setup so PewDiePie could show up and shoot it so it could
Yeah.
blow up. It felt like they were trying to emulate 28 Weeks Later with the napalm strike scene where the kids duck down when the explosions happen and shit. And also the gas station explosion scene from the beginning of 28 Days Later. They're like, okay, we need to have explosions for trailers. That way people will be like,
Yeah.
oh, it's just like the first two.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was the dumbest execution though, because of the first one, they Molotov'd a zombie because Jim's by himself and they're trying to make sure there's other survivors, and the zombie trips into a gas station. This is 28 days in. Of course it's going to explode. Sure. Okay. Napalm strike. That makes sense because they're like, okay, we fucked up. We need to get rid of these infected as fast as possible. But here, oh, it's just been gas that's sitting here, and PewDiePie showed up to shoot the gas.
Yeah, yeah, and we get a huge explosion where the kid and the mom are perfectly fine
Yeah, it's like
inside.
and apparently there's like glass that they're sitting on top of. That way we could get a cool
Yeah.
angle of them ducking from the fire.
They make it out of there, and they end up talking with this guy.
I think he's like a teen,
child,
like
but-
19, 20.
Yeah, somewhere in that range.
Because he brings up how he was just trying to make money and he could have been like doing Uber. And they bring up, so this is where the whole Brexit things happens, where there's this isolationism. He's like talking about, yeah, we have phones, we have delivery services. Don't you know what this is? And it's like, okay,
But yeah.
the world has progressed beyond Britain. I can understand that. That's how it would be. Like, you have this 1 second. It's kind of like the movie Peninsula, where Train to Busan happened, South Korea became an isolation zone where it just became a stasis bubble.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so he's going on about like all this stuff, like from the modern day world, and this kid who was born, he's 12, so 16
Yeah, he's 12.
years into
Yeah.
the apocalypse. Like that, this is all he knows. He doesn't know any of this like technology or delivery driving, like none of that. I kind of like the conversations back and forth between them a little bit. They have a little bit of bickering, like whenever he shows him his fiance and like, what's wrong with her face.
The whole
Yeah.
scene, she had a lot of plastic surgery. Her cheekbones were lifted. She had puffed up lips. And the kid was like, yeah, I've seen an allergic reaction to shellfish. It looks just like that.
Yeah. I thought that was funny, that their little conversations.
That
back and
was
forth.
hilarious. I liked the banter. And I wish they would have kept that, which the Swedish guy, it felt like he wasn't actually Swedish because he dropped his accent a few times. And I was like, okay, is he Swedish or not? But they were just trying to add a character that was meant to die. I knew as soon as he showed up, I'm like, he's not going to survive.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you could definitely tell he was not going to survive.
He was supposed to be, the whole reason for his character was to show how the outside world has progressed, what kind of stuff has kind of progressed with it that we're familiar with, but they wouldn't be. But there was one thing they kept bringing up with the kid is they kept referencing stuff, and then they would look at him, they were like, oh, yeah, you wouldn't understand that. Felt like they were
kept doing it over and over.
being mean to the kids, just like, you don't understand that, you fucking idiot. And it's just like, why would he know that?
Yeah.
Because later on, the
Yeah,
doctor
exactly.
is even like, alas, poor Eric. Okay, this is a 12-year-old. Even if the zombie apocalypse didn't happen, he would not understand fucking Macbeth.
And we also find out with the soldier dude that once you get onto the island, there's no coming off. So he knew that this was his new life.
Yeah, he's
He's there
basically
forever.
trying to learn, because we brought it up earlier. He says these zombies, and when I heard the Z word, you're not supposed to say the Z word. I was like, oh, so either the zombies existed as a concept this whole time in the universe, or because of the rage outbreak, they started referring to them as zombies. It doesn't really explain that. But it felt counterintuitive to how Danny Boyle used to be about 28 Days Later, saying they're not zombies, they're their own thing, they're infected, they're monsters, they're people that have this virus, they are alive. And now he's just like, they evolve. It feels like he gave up on the concept of the rage infected just to be like, okay, this is where the story's supposed to go now. The mom goes off by herself. I don't know why they allow the mom that has brain cancer to go off by herself into a train with an infected that is screaming at the top of its lungs. She goes up, and there is a pregnant infected woman with a bulbous ass stomach, and she goes up to it and puts her hand up to it. I was like, what?
And this is like another instance where I'm like, are the infected evolving more? The infected ends up putting her hands out.
Yeah.
And we get like this weird bonding moment between the two
What
ladies.
the fuck that was?
Dude, I don't either.
Because I was like,
And it's-
okay, during birth, maybe there was some kind of like mental lucidity that the infected mom got, that she was like, oh, okay, you understand what I'm going through. But then she gives birth to it, and then the umbilical cord's there, and it's like, hey, son, help me cut the umbilical cord of this infected blood that's spewing everywhere, by the way. You have the birth canal of infected rage blood. No one's paying any mind to that. Even the Swedish guy should be like, there's blood here. We should not be worrying about this. If I was, if I was that guy, I would have shot that on sight. I don't care.
I would too.
I was like,
I
no,
would too.
I'm not risking
Yeah.
this. I've seen Dawn of the Dead 2004.
Yeah.
And I've seen
Yeah, no,
Army of
absolutely.
the Dead.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Army of the Dead especially. And that the mom, you can tell her hands are covered in blood, and she's tearing cloth with her teeth. Like she's holding rags.
Yeah.
With her bloody hands and just tearing it with her mouth. I'm like, what are you doing? What is this? There's no urgency. There's no no precaution.
No, none at all. And this is like
Yeah.
one of the bloodiest things you could do as a human is
Yeah.
birth.
Dude, it's such a bizarre scene, and I don't know why they felt the need to put that in the movie.
I don't either, because it makes you think, okay, maybe they're breeding or something. But no, I don't think it's the case. I think it was an infected mom it was a mom that got infected while she was pregnant. I'm guessing.
Yeah. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. It can't be anything else, right? Because like the baby is not infected.
No.
Therefore, if two infected creatures somehow make a baby, it's probably going to be infected.
Yeah.
And I don't think she got infected like 10 years ago, and the baby's
No.
just been sitting there.
No,
You know, so,
it has not been incubating all that time.
Exactly. So that's the only thing that makes sense.
And the thing is, after the baby comes out, the umbilical cord is cut. The infected mom just out of nowhere. And it's like, oh, she is rage infected. It's like, why didn't she do that in the first place? What are we trying to get here? It felt like Army of the Dead's Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead's who it was for. The guy that directed that. Zack Snyder. Yeah, it was Zack Snyder. It was like they were trying to do that whole thing of the zombie queen giving birth and then she died. It's just like, what are we trying to do? I'm so tired of the whole we're going to introduce babies that stop with the baby crap. No more babies and zombie stuff. I'm like, as soon as I saw the baby, I'm like, I'm done.
I don't understand. Also, do infected feel pain? Because I just thought infected, they don't care about anything.
No, yeah, they have one goal, infection and beating the shit out of you.
Exactly, but she's disabled just because she has a baby in her stomach. You would think that would have been a little bit cooler, at least, if like this infected girl is somehow, and even this, I mean, this sounds crazy, but like she's giving birth but doesn't care. And she is still trying to go after them while giving birth or something.
Honestly, that would have been better instead of her gaining sentience because of life and death. It's like, I know what you're trying to do with the symbolism and imagery.
Yeah.
No, it was awful. And then the Swedish guy, he's like, yeah, we need to kill that. We need to kill that. Yes, that's the sensible thing to do. And because he's screaming there, because he's the only one that's like, oh, this baby thing's stupid. Okay, now we have to kill him.
Yeah.
Because suddenly the alpha shows up. It's like, oh, there's the zombie I knocked up. Time for me to come in as baby daddy. He pulls him up by the head through a train window and rips his head off. And I'm like, okay, we already had the head ripping off thing twice. It feels like it's being outplayed now. I feel like they could have done something else. It feels like they had the concept. They're like, okay, that's the only thing he does. And so he starts chasing him through the train. I'm like, okay, is this a reference to Train to Busan now? What is going on?
And you know what's funny is like this alpha kept chasing him through the train, but like would just randomly stop to stare at them. You know?
Yeah,
so
every time he got hit by an arrow, he's like, oh, you hit me.
Yeah.
Wow, you're quite a formidable kid there, aren't you? It didn't feel like the rage infected again because this thing's stopping and this thing's supposed to be the alpha male. It's like, I don't care. I'm getting an infection or a kill. It's going to be either or. But it's like, it's a kid and there's a baby. I'll stop and gawk. We get to the Bone Temple and the doctor's like, yeah, I have a sedative that can make it sure he's pacified. With a blow dart.
Yeah, this orange man comes out of nowhere and just blow darts the alpha to sleep.
It's like, what? And the thing is, he's covered in blood and stuff. I was like, okay, maybe they're doing the Walking Dead thing where if you cover yourself in guts, you mask your scent and your identity from the infected, the dead. And I was like, okay, maybe they're doing that. He shows up and apparently he doesn't kill these things when they're sedated. He's like, I'll just leave it there. We got a few hours. He's fine. It's like, kill the motherfucker.
Which is weird. Yeah, I was wondering, like, does he care for the infected? Like, I don't get it.
That never gets brought up again.
Yeah.
He keeps sedating infected, but he never kills them. He just sits here. The biggest imagery of what this trilogy is going to be is these piles and piles of skulls and bones. And my theory back in the day when trailers were coming out is there was this cult and they would forcefully infect people. And if you became fully infected, they would kill you and put your skull in the pile. And if you were a carrier, you would become one of them. I was like, okay, that's the concept. No, the concept is this doctor has been here for 15 years. Every time he finds a dead body or there's somebody that's died, he processes them. He gets rid of the whole body, decapitates the head, burns the head where there's just a skull left. He puts their guts in a flowing river, which I'm like, okay, you just polluted a water source. Good job, buddy. And then he puts their skull in piles. He's been doing this for 15 years. So it is just a mass grave. I'm like, okay, again, imagery, really cool, but the execution of how we got this is so insane.
And the fact that he's like living his life to do this.
Yeah, he's literally just been sitting here. And the whole point is, I remember you showed me, it was the code you type in Memento Mori to find out more about what's been going on. And the whole point of that was because he obsesses over a dead language because, you know, we're in a dead society now and we're using Memento Mori and it means to remember death. And I'm like, we're remembering death, yeah, because people are dying all the time. and there are many kinds of it. He went into this whole monologue of just talking about death. It felt so preachy.
It did. You have this guy who's like, so he lives in the Bone Temple. He has no buildings. There's no building around, by the way. No structures. This dude just like sleeps on the dirt, I guess, in the middle of bones.
Oh no, he has a bunker that he goes in when the infected attack. Or not even a bunker.
Okay.
It was just like under there. It was like a hatch that he goes into.
Yeah, I remember that. It just felt like a little hole though to hide in. You know, maybe that's where he sleeps. I don't know. But it felt so little.
It's funny you bring up the whole he lives here thing because there's no structure to live in, no safety. He brings up that I cover myself in iodine.
Yes, iodine.
Iodine.
And it makes it to where they don't want to attack you. I feel like that he could have been like, I'm going to tell this to people to the colony because I care about them. He waves at them like it's casual. It's like you're telling me all it took was iodine to repel the infected to not attack you?
Oh, interesting. Okay, I guess I misunderstood that part because I thought he was saying it neutralizes like the virus, meaning if blood gets on him or anything, then it kills it.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Because he is
That's
covered
what I
in
thought he was
blood,
saying,
but we only get one interaction with him and the infected, and it's the alpha.
Yeah.
It makes more questions about how have you survived for 15 years putting bones in a pile?
Yeah. This is his mission.
Because everybody else that goes out into the island, they get bombarded quickly. You come here and like, oh, iodine, I'm fine.
Yeah, it's crazy how this dude survives all this time with like no defenses, nothing, all by himself.
Just
with
a
the
blow
rage-infected world. Yeah, with the little blow dart.
How is he making these concoctions in the first place?
Yeah, where's he getting his supplies from?
He's not going to a hospital. He lives here, putting bones in piles. How are you getting this shit?
I was wondering that too. Where does he keep it? Like maybe in that little hatch. I don't know, but
I don't know.
And this is kind of where I was mentioning earlier, like where this part of the movie started feeling like Harry Potter to me. Like being in this bone temple, there was like this music, like this fantasy music, and it just didn't feel like 28 days later, 28 years. It didn't feel like any of that. The music was so odd. It was such an odd choice.
There was a lot of weird music choices throughout.
There was some pretty crazy music choices actually at some points.
It pisses me off that the 28 Days Later theme was not played once.
Oh my, yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's crazy.
It's like I kept waiting for it.
Theme.
They didn't use it. I was so sad.
Yeah. In the House, in a Heartbeat.
In a House, in a Heartbeat by John Murphy.
Yeah, it's such a good song. I can't believe they didn't use that.
Yeah. It's sad,
wow.
but
that is really sad. But yeah,
the whole Harry Potter thing, because there was like the whole sky view where it looked like a galaxy above them. You guys are going for the gritty, dark stuff, but now we're getting like this
mystical.
Disney. Like, let me show you the world.
Exactly. I leaned over to my wife and I was like, if you could replace these bones with anything else, this is a Disney movie right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I got.
It just glosses over why he's been here all this time, and it's the symbol. He's focused so much on the symbology, he forgets there's a zombie outbreak on this island, and he's just immune from it because he's so focused on symbology. That kind of summarizes how I feel about this movie. Like, it's just a bubble of symbology and imagery that it does not matter that there's zombies around. He said he's a general practitioner. He's like, okay, how do you feel about your memory loss? Does it come in waves? Let me feel your breast. Let me feel your lymph nodes. Okay, you most likely have cancer. It either spread from your breast to your brain or vice versa. It went from your brain to your breast, but you do have full-blown cancer. You do not have much time left. And then it turns into this whole thing where the mom is like, yeah, I don't want to live anymore. Let's just get this over with. And then he blow darts the son, but it doesn't sedate him. It's more like he got injected with ayahuasca and he starts tripping, where he's like, yeah, I'm subjective to whatever you're talking about. It's like, okay, we thought the dad was a bad person for getting his son drunk, but now we get him high. And it's like, now remember these words, memento mori. There are many kinds of death, some good, some bad. I'm like, what is this? What?
Like nobody talks like that in real life. It's like he's literally reading out of a poem.
It's like it's Lord of the Rings, like the old mage sitting on the mountainside becoming philosophical. I was like, this is too much. It feels like a college student overanalyzing shit. Now, I know I'm not one that should say shit because I've done that with way too many zombie movies or overanalyze. But this feels like somebody that was going into it with that mindset. It's like, oh, we're going to overanalyze. This is what it represents. And death and life. But to the way it's executed, I was like, oh my God, just get this over with. Because it made me tear up a little bit, because it did hit for me a little bit, because my mom has had bladder cancer. She's had a quadruple bypass with her heart. She's had a lot going on. And It did hit for me because that was his mom. She had cancer. It was emotional. I can see where people were like, oh, it made me tear up. It made me start bawling. I get that. But for me, I teared up and then I stopped myself from crying because I was like, this does not feel earned. It feels ham-fisted.
I thought it felt very, very hand-fisted. And then we get like a whole, like, so the doctor ends up just killing the mom.
Yeah.
As soon as he diagnoses her, and they, burn her body, and now she's a skull. Gives the skull to, the little kid, and we get like a whole 2-minute scene of him climbing this tower.
Yeah.
It just feels like he's climbing and climbing and climbing and climbing. Finally, he gets to the top, and then he sets the skull down.
And he makes
they get
sure
to watch the
she's
sunrise.
facing the sun. Yeah, the sunrise.
Yeah.
Like, oh, isn't it beautiful, Mom? This is the extent of what the Bone Temple is, because suddenly the Alpha starts showing up in the middle of the night, breaking bones and stuff. I was like, okay, maybe he shows up regularly because he doesn't like the structure or something. He forces him into this hatch, which I was like, this is like Jurassic Park 3, where the guy shows up and he starts getting chased by the velociraptors. The kid shows up and has chemical concoctions that repels them. And he's like, what is that? Oh, it's T-Rex piss. And he goes in a hatch and they start talking, but they're hiding there. So it's like, okay, we're finally explaining how the doctor survived all this time. If something happens where infected show up, he goes in the hatch. But not even 2 minutes in, the Alpha punches through and starts grabbing the doctor. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
and I actually thought he was gonna die.
I thought he was too.
Yeah, and I was gonna be so disappointed because he's somebody I want to know more about.
He breaks through, and this guy has strength, right? The super strength. Doesn't do anything to him. He just pulls him up and down, up and down, up and down. It's like, get the concoction, put it in him. And then suddenly the arm goes limp. Again, they don't kill the thing. They're like, it's fine. He might come back. I don't know.
Just sedate him, and let's move on.
And that's all we get with the Alpha. That's the end of the Alpha storyline for the movie.
Yeah.
He punches his arm through and then goes back to sleep. Literally, shows up, does some stuff, pulls some heads off, goes to sleep. Shows up, pulls another head off, goes to sleep. I was like, this is what we get with the infected, because with every 28 days, there's always an iconic infected that does something memorable. We get Mailer, the guy that's chained up in the back of the army guy's place. He breaks out eventually. We see that scene of him in the window with his eyes just, dude, I still get goosebumps thinking of that scene. It was so well done.
It was, absolutely.
And then he goes to town killing a lot of people. And there was even the sight gag of him running around like it's Benny Hill. And then,
I know what you're talking about.
and then the second one, we get Dawn as the infected and him just running around causing chaos and shit. Even though it didn't make sense that he got to kill all those soldiers, it was still iconic of what he was
absolutely.
doing.
Yeah.
And then at the end, when he shows up he was apparently, it showed there was intelligence with the Rage infected. He was hunting his own son because he held resentment for him surviving, or his wife. There was something in his brain that's like, I can't let you live. But here, the Alpha, just nothing.
And I feel like besides the Alpha, the most iconic infected in this movie was the one everybody thought was Cillian Murphy. But he is literally in it
I
for
forgot to
like
bring that up.
10
Yeah.
seconds. Yeah, he's
That's-
in it for like 10 seconds, and that's it.
That shows you how forgettable that was. We got all of that hype about that one zombie show, because the way he was dilapidated and how brittle he was, it was like, okay, this is how the infected are gonna look. This is gonna be the icon of what they are. It's literally the mom, the cancer mom, is just in a daze, and the thing is slowly walking up. Like he was a walker from Walking Dead. It did not feel like a Rage infected, and it wasn't one of those bloated steroid things. It was just a regular infected. And he
seemed weak. Like,
was
and
weak.
he was just, he was so weak and barely like walking up to them. Like you said, it felt like a Walking Dead, like a walker. And then the kid just takes his time and lines up his shot and just kills him. And that's it.
That was it for what kept being shown, what was a part of the marketing so heavily.
It was on like magazines and stuff. Like,
it made everyone think it's Cillian Murphy. What, did he get Cillian Murphy? That's what we're getting is 10 seconds of this shrill motherfucker. But
those are the two most iconic infected in the movie, and even then, it's forgettable.
yeah, they don't do anything. They do.
Yeah.
Literally, the Alpha rips some zombies' heads off. There was this other Alpha that dies that shows how durable he is, and that the durability thing never comes up. Just like, look how durable they are. And literally, how durable is he? He runs down a train and stops running every once in a while.
Yeah.
Just like
and
the whole...
it's not even like he breaks the doors open on the train either. He stops to open them. Like he slides them open and then he keeps running again.
Yeah, it would have been cool if he busted through them to show, these things are fucking tanks from Left 4 Dead or something.
Yeah, exactly.
You keep showing these concepts that go nowhere. We talked about it earlier. You had all this buildup. and just nothing. You have this whole thing of a whole settlement coming together to take down one infected. And then the second one, there's nothing. He takes out some soldiers and then gets Voldemort by the throat and then goes to sleep.
That's it.
And it was so disappointing.
It was. It really was. At that point, I was just ready for the movie to be over. It felt like it was dragged on so long.
This
I
is
don't
an
know
hour
why.
and
It's like
55-minute movie.
Yeah, and it's like the first 30 minutes are great, but it goes by so quick, and then it's like after that, the movie feels like it drags.
So
Yes.
bad. And then it turns into this whole thing because the kid, we're forgetting, he has the baby this whole time. The thing's not crying, screaming, or anything. And the doctor, he says something extremely stupid. Like, I didn't know this. My girlfriend told me because she's had a kid. He's 11 now. Great kid. He actually watched the movie with us. It was cool.
Yeah. Is it the water thing?
Yeah, the water thing. He's like,
Yeah.
you need to give it water, but he needs to drink milk. What she told me is water is basically toxic to fresh-born children. You cannot give it to them because pretty much chokes out the electrolytes where it fucks up the immune system. You're going to kill that kid if you give it water.
Yes. As soon as he said that, I thought the same thing. He said you can give it can go off water for like 4 days or something.
I was like, where did you get that from? You're a doctor.
Yeah, exactly. Terrible advice.
It would have made sense because the whole settlement was like, yeah, we don't have any doctors. It would have made sense if some random fucko said it, but you're saying the one doctor in Britain is like, yeah, give it some water. So the doctor's like, yep, I gotta go back to putting bones in the pile.
Yeah, he's like, I recommend you go home, and that's it. The kid just leaves.
It's just like,
on his
okay,
way home.
you're carrying the kid, and there's no infected. You don't have any bows left. And he gets home, but he's like, you know what? I don't trust my dad. I gotta find out more of the real world. I'm gonna drop the baby off at the settlement, leave a note for my dad, and then we have the music. I think it's from the end of 28 Days where it's kind of like an intense thing. It's not the theme. It was playing that music during the note. It was very somber, but it was not the theme. And he's basically telling his dad, I'm gonna go out into the world and survive on my own. Here's a child named Isla, named after our mom. My girlfriend brought up another point. The dad, when he sees the letter, he panics out into the water by himself. I'm like, okay, so when you noticed your son wasn't there the first time, you didn't do that? Especially with the cancer wife. He's like, oh, he took her with him? 2 birds with 1 stone? Fuck yeah.
It's the note that does it.
Yeah,
It's the note that sends him over the top.
It's like, you know you're not supposed to go on search parties. Yeah, they established that. But at the same time, this guy goes regularly on search expeditions. He probably would have used one of those search expeditions to be like, okay, I'm going to tangent off. And because the boy brought up the doctor over and over and over again, the fire. He's like, okay, maybe he went there. I don't want to go there, but I have to get over this. No, we don't get... The dad just doesn't appear in the second act, and he should have in that specific instance. Maybe the dad shows up and kills the alpha. That's what should have happened. Is the alpha's... Yeah, the alpha's attacking him, and the narrative should have been he was scared to fight the first alpha. He's like, okay, we're gonna die. He gets over it when he shows up to save them. Maybe he dies fighting it. Maybe he kills it. Who knows? That's what should have happened, but that does not happen.
That would have been great. Yeah, I like that idea.
But the dad, it's just the whole colony of the island. They establish it, and then it's like the whole point of it was there's no point in going off the island. You're on your own. That was literally all the buildup was.
Yeah, we don't get like any backstory on the island either. Like we get one clip right where it shows like all these little jobs they have, where it shows like the drawings. Like,
yeah,
like,
all their
pictures
jobs
of, like,
and stuff.
Yeah.
It was like a fisherman, a hunter, a watchtower guard. There wasn't any doctors.
yeah, no doctors.
You would think we were going to get more of that. It just shows one thing of them doing archery practice about aiming for the heart or the head. But even that gets superimposed by the whole we need to have imagery. Here's stock footage, and it shows medieval archers shooting while they're shooting. I'm like, I get what you're going for. Society has restarted, and you're having to rebuild. And archery was something they used in medieval times because it's Britain, and that's what we know Britain for is because medieval times. Yeah, okay. But my God, dude, what is this stock footage stuff? Get over it.
I know. I really don't get it.
Okay, I was like, okay, how is this going to end? Because I was looking at my phone because I knew sorry, I burped there. I was looking at my phone the whole time because I knew the runtime was 1 hour 55. I got there at 7 o'clock, and I was like, oh my God, it's 8:45. There's only like less than 10 minutes left. How are they going to end this? Is it just going to be him walking off into the sunset? What is this? And because the last 2 movies, it was a complete package movie. You didn't need to watch another one or watch a previous one. So we have the kid by himself. He's apparently knows how to fish and cook and all that. He has this fish that he cooked, and he's out in the open, by the way, on an open road. I don't know why you're out in the open, by the way.
Yeah.
And he's cooking the fish. He's making this smell, which I'm assuming Rage Infected can smell. Horrible idea.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I was like, eat it raw, dude, if you're going to be eating whatever. You have
Yeah.
a sack of apples that you probably have. An infected shows up in the middle of the road, stares at him for a while. It's not an alpha, it's just a regular one. He calls for other infected. They're chasing him. He's like, oh man, he has to ditch the fish. And I feel like the fish thing, it was there just to be like, oh yeah, by the way, we have to remind you that the infected can eat now.
Yeah, because an infected jumps right onto it.
Yeah, he starts eating it. He doesn't even pay attention to the human there. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, this isn't Rage Infected again. There's just zombies now.
So the kid's getting chased and ends up at like a dead end.
Yeah, there was
and-
like a pile of rocks in the road. And I was like, oh,
which is a
that's
little
not
weird.
natural.
And the infected are like starting to show up and whatever, and or is it like one or two, and he kills both of them.
Yeah, and it doesn't do that weird action shot stuff. It just kills them. Because I was like, oh my god, they're going to start doing the action shots. It doesn't happen. I'm like, how am I disappointed but relieved at the same time?
Exactly. And so he kills both of them, right?
Yeah.
And then out of nowhere, we hear this random dude talking. It's like, where's this coming from? And he looks up to the heavens
Oh,
above.
no, it wasn't talking. It was it was the laughing. I was like, hyenas? What is this?
Yeah, this man comes out, all dressed up.
He looks like a
you
Russian
mentioned.
mobster with the
Yeah.
tracksuit.
Yeah, exactly. And then I don't even remember what the dialogue goes like, but he's like, "Yeah, there's some more infected coming up. Would you like us to help?" And it's like one of those like oh boys, and like his crew just like comes out
Oh,
of
merry
nowhere.
man from Shrek.
Yeah, yeah. It's like the Backstreet Boys come out of nowhere, all
Yeah.
dressed up, and it's the whole tone of the movie at that point.
It
just
dies.
shifts. It's like a comedy.
It becomes
Yeah.
a comedy. I was like, what the actual hell? There's less than 10 minutes left, and they cliffhang on it. We go from the 28 weeks later cliffhanger of they've gotten to Paris, or we got the cliffhanger of 28 days, he might survive, or it depends on the ending that you got, where Jim
Yeah.
dies and they go off on their own. But here,
Yeah.
it turns it, you said it before this, it becomes zombie land, where this roaming gangsters show up in tracksuits. They're doing aerobatics, doing backflips, flipping over them, putting weapons around the infected, laughing and goofing. It's like, what? I literally sat there, mouth open, aghast, going, what the actual fuck is this?
Yeah. No, I was the same way. I lost my attention span halfway through that, and I can't even recall everything that happened in that sequence just because I was so dumbfounded.
What happened was all these people are bowing to him. They're hinging on his every word. So he's obviously the leader. He's got jewelry all over his hands. He's got some messed up looking teeth. He's walking around like he's Clockwork Orange, basically, like just a roaming gang killing for fun. And he goes up to the kid and he's showing him everything, and he's like, okay, how can we help or whatnot? And it shows that this guy is Jimmy. The kid from the beginning of the movie that survives, that is the person here. The one that was hyped up with the carved in the flesh on the back and the graffiti saying Jimmy is coming or whatever. This is the ultimate
That's
threat of the
and-
mainland.
The actor Jack O'Connell, he even said that this was his darkest role ever, and he said, I don't know if you've seen Sinners, but
No.
he was in that. Okay, yeah, so he was in that. He was like the main bad guy in that. It is a pretty dark role, and like he was great in it. He was like the main antagonist, and for him to be going out and like advertising like he's this big threat, such a dark force. And 28 years later, and that is what we get. He shows up in the last few minutes
And is
in a
goofy as
tracksuit.
hell.
Yeah, super goofy.
You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of that horrible Suicide Squad movie from 2016, 2017, and how they advertised Jared Leto, and he ended up being in it for 5 minutes. But Jared Leto's like, I'm such a wild Joker, and he's sending like live rats and sex toys in the mail to his co-stars. I'm like, that's what it reminds me of. Like, you're acting like this is some dark shit, but it's just the 14-year-old Hot Topic shopper's concept of what a dark and twisted person is.
Exactly. It's so disappointing.
And for it to be the intro, for Jimmy to be the intro and outro of this movie with only the back scratch and the graffiti to connect it somehow throughout this movie, which there's literally no other reason for the Jimmy thing to be there. There's nothing to show that they're involved in the British mainlands, that they're any kind of threat. I'm guessing they're going to be the main threat of the second movie, because the priest of a father that he he gave him the cross with the necklace at the beginning. I see the image that you showed me.
Yeah.
And he has it draped around his neck. The cross is upside down to show, because the kid, when Jimmy is a kid, he says, "Why hast thou, God, forsaken me?" And so I'm guessing he runs through this, and now we're going to go through the whole God has forsaken Britain. This is Brexit 2.0. I don't know. Have you ever watched It's Always Sunny?
I haven't. I have not.
There's a character called Rickety Cricket. Just look up in a bit what he looks like, current Rickety Cricket. He looks just like him, and it looks messed up and whatnot, but a lot of my theories revolved around a cult. And apparently there is a cult, and this is it. Tracksuit wearing aerobic guys killing like it's fun. And if you look in the credits, because I was looking and there was 7 different people named Jimmy. And I'm like, what the hell is that? Jimmy number 1, Jimmy number 2, Jimmy number 3. And then there was a woman in the group. She was named Jemima.
Aunt Jemima.
I was like, what? Jemima? So apparently
Jemima.
Everyone is called Jimmy. And I'm like, okay, this is some Walking Dead shit again, because everyone calls themselves Negan in like season 7. I'm like, oh my God, this is just Zombieland Walking Dead.
It's like, I think this whole movie is like, you take The Walking Dead with Zombieland and Army of the Dead.
Yeah.
And you threw it into one. There's so much inspiration, I feel like, from all of them.
Yeah, it's like they were
incredible.
watching all the zombie stuff and they're like, oh yeah, I forgot what 28 Days Later was all about. Because it disregards everything about the Rage Infected. And the thing that pissed me off the most at the end, everyone's talking about how kooky they were, or how awful the ending was. But the biggest thing that always scared the shit out of me about the Rage virus is do not get a drop of blood anywhere near you. It's so infectious. And here you have these guys, I'm guessing they're carriers if they're be acting this way. But he was sitting there sawing a zombie's head off with a string. Blood is spewing everywhere. And I'm like, you guys don't have any protective eyewear, nothing to cover your mouths, your nose, your orifices, nothing, just tracksuits. I'm like, this is forgetting what the Rage virus is.
Exactly.
I've said it over and over again, but this was definitely intended to be a miniseries. Kind of like Zombieland in its conception was supposed to be a television series, but it didn't get picked up, so they repurposed a lot of the elements to make Zombieland 1. It worked well. When they made the sequel, the Zombieland TV show that had 1 episode and failed. I know a lot of that, kind of like the vegan colony or whatever, that got repurposed into that failed. This, 28 years later, is what that is.
I completely agree.
Because the cult of Jimmy. So this is what we're getting. And we have Bone Temple, which I don't know why it's called Bone Temple at this point. What symbol? They're that focused on the symbolism of their imagery that I guess there's going to be a battle at the Bone Temple. And
something. I honestly don't. I don't know. I have no idea what more they can really dive into with this Bone Temple.
You have technically 4 factions. You have the colony on the island. You have the cult of Jimmy, which I don't know. I guess they're going to attack the island in the second one, or they're going to do something with the Bone Temple.
Yeah, I could see that.
You have the Rage Infected that have mutated, I guess. And then you have the Doctor, who's just this impartial guy to even the infected. So I guess they all unite at this Bone Temple and it becomes a 3-way royale.
Yeah, maybe. Going against what, though?
I don't know at this point. When it comes to cliffhangers, especially when you introduce a whole new character organization, you have to lead off on something not, oh, we're here to help. Because I saw some people saying that ending was insane. It made me wanting more. I'm like, no, it does not make you want more. It makes you think, what the fuck?
Yeah. What did I just watch? What just happened?
Yeah, it feels like I just drove a car going 95 miles an hour off a cliff, and I'm like, oh, I'm about to die. That's what...
Yeah. Very disappointing. Very let down. But, we got the next movie in 6 months, I think. They said it comes out in January.
What? Originally, it was June 2026. You're telling me it's January now?
Let me see. Okay, hold on.
Oh, I have to look that up, too, because I remember seeing 20... Let me see.
Yeah, January 16th. 6 months.
You are absolutely kidding me.
Yeah, and that's why Danny Boyle's not directing it. So the reason behind it was because they said that it was going to be too expensive to get Danny Boyle to also direct this movie because they didn't want to have to rebuild the sets and everything like that. So they filmed this movie at the same exact time. So they had a different director doing it. Yeah. So, but they said if they do make the third one, then Danny Boyle will return to direct that one.
They're not even confident that it's going to continue after this. James Cameron was confident with his Avatar 2, 3, 4, and 5 coming forward. But here it's like, we're going to make the first two, and we'll see how it goes. And I'm
I- like,
looking
it's-
at the director for the next one. Her name is Nia DaCosta. I'm trying to see what she did the Candyman reboot.
Okay.
She
That-
did
that
the
was fine.
Marvels in
I never saw
2023.
it. Small portfolio.
Yeah.
Candyman was, that was not a bad movie. I enjoyed it.
It doesn't fill me with hope, especially because this is a different director that's just being handed this cliffhanger.
Yeah, I know. Did
I-
Alex Garland write this?
I think it's Alex again.
At least it has that going for it.
Yeah, it's Alex.
To try to keep.
Again.
Okay, so at least it has that going for it. It'll keep the story consistent. It's saying that Cillian Murphy and Aaron Taylor Johnson and Jack O'Connell.
Yeah,
are
Killian's
confirmed for it.
supposed to be in it, which I don't know
Yeah.
what the hell Killian's going to be a part of with this. I guess he's a part of the cult of Jimmy because his name is Jim. I don't know. It's like, hey,
what?
your
Yeah.
name is Jim. You can fit right in.
Yeah, that's actually, yeah, I mean, so you think he may be like an antagonist?
Antagonist, or maybe he's working with them to sabotage. I don't, dude. Trying to conceptualize the ideas of what this is turning into, it
Yeah.
makes me sick to my stomach thinking about. If this was episode 1 and 2 and we had to wait a few months for it, that would be fine because that's
Right.
how TV shows go. But with movies, they're supposed to be isolated experiences that are good, that are good on their own, that can stand
Yeah.
on their own. This does not stand on its own at all.
Yeah,
It's-
yeah, you're right.
It's leaning on its sequel, and we don't know if that building is structurally sound.
I'll be honest, man, I really don't have high hopes for the next movie.
No, I don't either.
I want it to be good so bad, but I just don't think it's gonna go anywhere.
No.
I don't think this whole Jimmy thing, now that we see what Jimmy is, I don't think it's gonna be good.
It's not
I
worth
think
it.
it's gonna be so silly. Yeah,
I'm not-
I want to know what their compound is gonna look like.
Right,
Is everybody in those suits? Like, are they all just dancing? I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
The fact that they all have all this jewelry and tracksuits that are clean, maybe there's
Yeah.
a foreign government that's there and they're working with I don't know, man.
I don't either.
But to summarize, vastly disappointed. It was so focused on its own imagery and just ham-fisting stuff in. The stuff with the mom dying of cancer, that was ham-fisted. The kill shots with the 15 iPhones zooming around the kill, that was
Yeah. You know what? We should be getting a trailer pretty soon for the next one, if it's only in 6 months.
Yeah, we could talk about how disappointing it's going to be now.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens, man. But yeah, overall, this movie, it was a big bit let down. I mean, you said you'd give it like a 4 out of 10
Yeah, honestly,
overall.
talking back through it, honestly, I'm going to bring it down to a high 3.
I can agree with that. I think honestly,
this
if this movie kept with the first 30 minutes, it would have been
Yeah, that tone
for me. It
was
would have been a
good.
solid like 8.5.
That tone
But-
got thrown out the window so many times. It
did.
was 4 different stories combating with each other that did not pay off.
It's like a new director took over every 15 minutes.
Yeah, because it was 28 days, and then it became we're trying to survive in the post-apocalypse. Now, me mom has cancer, I have to cure her. But now it's about death and what it means, and now we got Clockwork
Disco
Orange.
dancers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, if it wasn't connected, if this was just its own movie, maybe I'd give it a 4.5. Some people would be like, well, you set your expectations too high. You relied on the trailers too much. You should go in with a fresh take. It's like, yeah, you can do that. You can have that mindset. You can enjoy this movie. You can. Yeah. I'm not holding you back from that. I'm coming from my opinions, and there's going to be a lot of people's opinions that come out about this. I'm seeing more that, because the reviews that came in were like, oh, this is the best movie of the year, and then it came from like Fox TV, and I'm like, what, Fox TV? Okay.
Yeah, I've seen, this has been, I think this is one of the most decisive movies this year. I've seen people hating it, and I see people love it. There's no in between.
I will say, in my lifetime, I have been waiting for this movie to happen, and for it to finally have happened and it turned into this. My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
Okay.
That is how I felt halfway through the movie, coming out of the movie, talking about the movie, and talking about it again with you, and then releasing this. I hate that I'm releasing a video like this, but it has to be fucking said, because my God. I went into this excited. I wanted another experience like the 28 series. Danny Boyle, Alex Garland, I don't know what you guys wrote, but let's do a reboot. Let's go 28 hours later. Let's forget this shit happened.
Yes, please.
I think we're already way into it. This is a lot to process, but yeah, that's our opinions. honestly the biggest disappointment of the decade.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That for me, that and Halloween Ends.
Yeah. Oh.
The two most disappointing movies of all time for me.
Damn. It's
Yeah.
a lot of hype, and when you build hype, you have to deliver on it. And that was.
And they didn't do it.
It was
Not even close.
You might say it's a bloody mess. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening to the spoiler-free section, which is like 4 minutes long. Going into this, I think it's going to be over an hour long now.
Yeah, probably.
And thank you to Chago. You've been amazing editing this stuff together for me.
No problem, man.
Check out his channel. He has recaps on days, weeks, and many other horror films. That's on Quick Flicks.
Yeah, you can catch any recap over there. Starting to pick it up a little more.
Heck yeah.
So.
And make sure to support by being a Patreon patron or YouTube channel member. If you are able to chip in just $1, you can have your name featured on this list here. And you can also see videos up to a week early. This one's going to come out pretty much as soon as it's done editing. So yeah, that's not doing early, but we're going to get back into the groove of it. And let us know what you think about the movie. If you have opinions on what we said throughout this, timestamp it and say how we're wrong or how we're right. Let's get avant-garde talking about the imagery and symbolism throughout the movie. Yes, it's quite magical. And until next time, thank you guys for watching. Stay happy, stay healthy, and never forget to
Stay wow.
There you go. I was gonna see. There you go. Perfect. See you next time.